Welcome back to another episode of the Two Balls, One Basket podcast, a podcast of the Playbook Sports Network. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at PlaybookSN and to visit our website, playbooksn.com. As always, I am your host, Jordan, and with me today is resident Miami Dolphin podcaster, Zak Sadik.
What's up?
Zak, all right, before we start, let's show the drip. Show your drip. I'm going to show my drip. I like my drip.
The old school
Old school.
Tyreek
Well,
Hills.
I got this freaking dude's face on my gut.
Love it. That's the
You know
iconic
why?
Tua
You know
pick.
why I have this guy on my gut? Because he's going to dissect the Kansas City Chiefs.
Throwing it to this guy.
Yes.
Revenge game.
All right. So we got Dolphins Chiefs Sunday morning, Frankfurt, Germany, 9:30 a.m. Kind of sucks that it's really early in the morning. Kind of sucks that it's in Germany. I just feel like Tyreek Hill going back to Arrowhead would have been an iconic game for both teams.
That would have been great, but this might be similar to what the bubble was for the NBA. Like the purest form, because we don't get any home field advantage. We don't get Arrowhead fans going crazy. It could be a blessing in disguise.
Well, didn't they say like the Chiefs have a lot of fans in Germany?
I'm sure they have a lot of fans around the world, but at least it's not going to be as crazy as Arrowhead for being on one side.
How do you think Tyreek Hill would have been welcomed at Arrowhead? You think they would have booed him, or you think they would have cheered for him?
I mean, I don't remember who it was on TV the other day was saying that Kansas City is appreciative of Tyreek Hill and they would have applauded him, they would have stood for him. I don't know, man. Maybe after the game or something like that. But before the game, I feel like it would have been a lot more either boos or just heckling him, because at the end of the day, he did demand a trade from the team. It wasn't like it was a mutual thing. They ended up working together to make the trade happen, but he definitely was the one to initiate the divorce between Kansas City and Tyreek Hill. So I don't think it would have been as amicable as some people think it was, but it would have been fun to see him kind of walk in there and as a kind of like a villain.
All right, so let's get into the game. We'll start with just a normal breakdown. I think that we have a nice advantage going into the game. I know we're probably not favored because this is considered a home game for Kansas City, but just the Chiefs have not looked right this whole year. It's the same thing I said about the Eagles, and then they ended up fucking us over. But I don't know. Patrick Mahomes looks different. And I say that because I have him in fantasy and he's not scoring 100 points every week. What's going on with the Chiefs? Do you think this team is the same? I know that they lack a lot of depth, and any depth actually at the receiver position, but you have Travis Kelce. The defense is carrying the team, which we haven't been able to say about the Chiefs for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Is this going to be a good game? Is one team going to run away with it? What's going to happen?
I mean, when you have two offensive geniuses with well-run offenses, it's probably going to be a close game regardless. Like, it'll probably be within striking distance at the end, one way or the other. But I think the biggest thing with the Chiefs is that lack of weapons. He doesn't have the Tyreek. Obviously, they still won the championship last year, but for whatever reason, this year that offense just feels kind of disjointed. And Pacheco is still running strong, but aside from him and Kelce, it's like they don't have anyone that they can reliably lean on. Rashee Rice, the rookie receiver, seems to be the designated red zone target when it's not going to Kelce. But outside of the red zone, it's kind of like, can you trust these guys? Sky Moore dropped, potential game-winning touchdown last week, or at least touchdown to take the lead in the game. Valdez Scantling, he's never been reliable, and he should never be someone's first option in the NFL. So I think that the biggest thing is that lack of weapons. And like you said, their defense has been pretty good by the numbers so far. They haven't had a ton of tough opponents, but neither has Miami, and Miami's given up one of the most amount of points on defense. So
I hate that. Joe and I said it on, I think, 2 weeks ago. That is such a stupid argument to say our schedule. I'm not even going to talk about them, and I'm not trying to be biased because I'm a Dolphin fan. We were voted one of the toughest schedules. It's not our fault those tough teams just ended up sucking.
listen, before we played the Eagles game, it was a huge talking point, and they were like, "Oh yeah, the only good team we played was the Bills." But I mean, the Chargers' record doesn't look great. They're picking things up, but that was a playoff team last year, and we beat them. So we have a lot more tough games toward the end of the year, and you play who's on the schedule. And I don't give a crap about the, you lose to good teams, but you beat the bad teams, because these good teams are losing to bad teams. And which would you rather have? Which would you rather have? Would you rather have the team that runs up the score on the Broncos by 50 points, or would you rather have the Chiefs that lose to the Broncos? So it's a give and take. Sure, you want your team to win every game, but I'd rather them not play with their food, take care of business, build up, across the season, and not have those weeks where you're severely disappointed when they lose to the winless, whatever the hell.
Win whatever games you can, because I don't want to, if we get to a point where we're in the playoffs, I don't want to have to go to Buffalo or Kansas City. I want them to come to Miami because it's freezing cold. Yep. I would rather play I don't play football. I don't like to be touched. Fun fact. But if I'm going to play football, I would rather play in 85 degrees than -4.
And guess what? Whether it's the winless Panthers or the Kansas City Chiefs, defending champions, a win or loss counts the same on the record, and it goes toward the playoff seeding just the same. Mm-hmm. So don't get me that who have they beaten nonsense. We'll see. They don't only play 2 hard teams the entire year. The schedule keeps going. We get more evidence every week.
This game is going to be different in my breakdown of the Dolphins-Eagles game, because I thought the Dolphins-Eagles game was 2 high-power offenses against 2 somewhat good defenses. This game is different. It's a high-powered offense versus a really nice elite defense. And then it's a struggling offense versus struggling defense, because, our defense is still getting the groove of the new coordinator. We just implemented Jalen Ramsey back in. Xavion's finally healthy. All these things. So I don't know. We'll get into what we think. I know this week I'm not calling a 60-point total score again, because every time I do that, I'm so wrong. So next, I want to give a player from the Chiefs. Which player should we keep an eye out on the most? No Travis Kelce. That's without saying. You don't have to even bring it out there. We know. Everyone knows.
Yeah,
player to watch out for.
Kelce's number one, and we'll see who they put on him, whether it's a linebacker or whether they stick, Jalen Ramsey on him, do something spicy like that. But outside of Kelce, I mean, none of the receivers really worry you. Obviously, you can't just leave them alone, but as long as you stick a guy on them, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, Valdez-Scantling, like they don't really put any fear into you as a defense. I would say keeping Mahomes in control. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, so I'll give you another one, but keeping Mahomes in the pocket, because he has the ability to escape and get yards on his legs and extend plays and launch while on the move. So if you can keep him in the pocket and then, get as many sacks as possible, their offensive line is banged up, I'm pretty sure. If you can get a couple sacks on them, that'll be a really good, thing for this game. But beyond that, the Dolphins' run defense needs to step up, because Isaiah Pacheco runs hard, and he does not get taken down with ankle tackles. And the Dolphins' defense all year has struggled at tackling. We never get the guy down
ever,
one tackler, and it's embarrassing. You watch these other teams that make these magnificent tackles in the backfield or tackles at the line of scrimmage. That doesn't happen with the Dolphins. Whether it's a 300-pound D lineman, whether it's a 250-pound linebacker, whether it's a 230-pound safety, for whatever reason, they take bad angles. They're not wrapping up properly. They cannot get a guy down on the first tackle attempt. So with a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, you better get that technique down because he will run through you. And so the run defense needs to step up. And if he has a good game, that probably means the Chiefs have a good game. If we stop the run, then that probably means something good for the Dolphins.
So I'm going to kind of throw a curveball here. Mine's not going to be on offense. Mine is Chris Jones.
Great answer.
And here's why. Our offensive line has played well, extremely well. For some reason, it's the only position that gets hurt. You know, on Sundays in a game, you get 6, 7, 8 injuries. Okay, yeah, that happens to the Dolphins, but they're all to the offensive line, always.
We had one starter in the game last week. We had one starter.
One starter. Granted, we are getting Armstead back. We are getting Connor Williams back. I know Robert Hunt they said he's day-to-day, but our offensive line has got to keep him in check because aside from, Tua's injury history, I just don't want him to be touched.
Yeah.
If you give him time, things are going to happen. If you create holes for Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, things are going to open up. Justin Reed said it today. They asked him, what is the best way to slow Tyreek Hill down? Easier said than done, of course. He said you got to stop the run. Because if you stop the run, that means they're going to end up in third and long situations. And then from there, it's just a foot race with Tyreek Hill. They'll lose, but that's what he said.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a great point about Chris Jones against our D-line. I mean, you saw what the Eagles did. I think the Eagles had 3 or 4 sacks on us a couple weeks ago. They generated pressure up the middle because they have stud D tackles.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris Jones is strong. He's quick. He's huge. If you let him get into the pocket consistently, he's going to disrupt everything. The quick passing game, the running game, he has to be priority number 1 from their defensive side.
So now we'll go to the Dolphins side. Who is the most important player for the Dolphins this week? You're going to love my answer.
I mean, now that you're going offense and defense, I don't know, it kind of opens the pool a little bit here.
I know you can't say Tyreek Hill.
Obviously can't say Tyreek Hill. I would say the most important player is going to be Xavier Howard.
Oh, good. I was sweating over here. I'm like, please don't take mine.
Because, like we just discussed, you want to apply pressure to Pat Mahomes. You want to have a chance to get a couple sacks with those stud DNs that you have. But the only way you can do that is if your corners aren't getting burnt down the field. And he actually has to hold the ball in the pocket, waiting for plays to develop. So Jalen Ramsey looks like he hasn't missed a step. We expect him to do big things, whether he's guarding the receiver or if they put him on Travis Kelce, because I watched something recently that showed a flashback of when he was with the Jaguars, and in the playoffs against the Patriots, he was guarding Rob Gronkowski. So he's up for the challenge. He wants to guard the best player on the other team, and if it happens to be a big guy, it's going to be a big guy. He's big himself. So I don't think that I have to worry about Ramsey, but Xavier has obviously lost a couple steps. It's not all injury related with him, like we hoped it was. So if he's not getting cooked and he's able to stay with the guy, whether it's whoever's on his side of the field or if they have him follow one guy around, just don't get burned. Don't embarrass yourself, because the last couple of weeks with the Eli Apples and the Perry Nickersons and Justin Bethels, like, they're good role guys, but you can't trust them to lock down the receivers every play.
Mm-hmm.
So Jalen Ramsey is going to be on lock on one side of the field. Xavier has to hold up his side of the bargain. And again, if that happens, then we're in good shape.
You ready for mine?
Let's hear it.
Mine is Bradley Chubb.
There you go. Work hand in hand.
Bradley Chubb. I'm going to say Bradley Chubb because we know what we're getting with Jalen Phillips. He's probably more than likely going to get more of the attention. Bradley Chubb needs to live up to that extension we gave him. gave a first-round pick for him. We gave Chase Edmonds, probably the greatest running back to ever step on turf.
Today
Bradley
was the
Chubb,
1 year anniversary of that trade, by the way.
well, I'm not celebrating it unless he plays good Sunday. He's got to live up to it. When he plays good, the defense as a whole plays good. He's only played exceptionally well in 2 games, the Patriots game and the one game before the Broncos, I think, because that was the one we didn't have Jalen Phillips. He applied pressure to the quarterback. Quarterbacks didn't have time to throw. I'm pretty sure he got sacks in both games. We know what Jalen Phillips is going to give us. If Bradley Chubb can get to Mahomes, make him flustered, make him have to get outside the pocket, look somewhere else besides Travis Kelce. That's another thing. They have to make sure he looks somewhere else besides Travis Kelce.
Yep.
If he's going to look at Travis Kelce and he's just going to keep throwing it, we may be in trouble. I know one person can't beat a team, but 2 can.
Yep. Yep. And underrated fact about that, Chubb was with the Broncos for years. He was in the Chiefs division, so he knows Mahomes very well. He probably knows his tendencies. He knows the angles to take on him. I think that his experience in that division could come in handy for sure.
Now I want to get to the running backs. Raheem Mostert has been better than expected, better than anyone could have imagined this year. Do you think he is reached his ceiling with us? Like, do you think the addition now, Jeff Wilson's back, Devon Achane's coming back the week after the bye? Do you think Raheem Mostert's still going to be that workhorse for us? Because, I'm pretty sure he leads the league in touchdowns.
Yeah, still does.
Tied with McCaffrey or something.
Leads, I think he leads in rushing touchdowns, but is tied for touchdowns total or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right.
But I mean, yeah, if by saying he's reached his peak, meaning it won't get better than it has been for the first half of the year, yes, I 100% agree with that, because first of all, I mean, that pace was never sustainable. I mean, having, 4 touchdowns in the Broncos game and rushing for $150, whatever it was. He will be solid. He will fit well with the offense and mesh with the scheme. But you cannot expect him to do what he did the first half of the year, the second half of the year. Not only is he a running back with the wear and tear and the constant hits every game, not being as fresh as the beginning of the year, but he also has the competition, like you said, with Jeff Wilson slowly coming back and then Devon Achane coming back, probably going to be the lead back in the offense, or at worst equal with Raheem, because of what we've seen with him. So, I mean, for NFL purposes, for the Dolphins purposes, it's not a bad thing that he's reached his peak. He was never expected to do what he did, and he performed admirably and helped us win some games. And being part of a committee is not a bad thing. It'll keep guys healthier. The only downside would be fantasy purposes, where he's not going to be getting 40
I know.
points.
I have him in 2 leagues, Zach.
Yeah.
What do you think I asked?
That's the one downside. The numbers won't look as great, but the offense will.
All right, so one more topic, and then we're going to get into score predictions, and then we'll get out of here. We know what we're getting with Tyreek Hill. Now, Jalen Waddle. He started the season fairly slow. People were expecting a big jump. I know the Dolphins were excited about him in camp. They said he was going to take this huge leap. Started real slow. I think it may have been because of Tyreek. Just you can't not throw the ball to Tyreek. He's always open. And when he's not open, he's open. Yeah, that makes no sense, but it makes sense to me. Jalen Waddle, the last week, I think 9 for 125 and a touchdown. Do you think Jalen Waddle is finally here? Do you think that we're going to see another good game from him back to back? Because I know he's been fighting injuries. Granted, his body's pretty much made of Twinkies at this point. He's always hurt.
I mean, that's a great question. He definitely had his best game of the year last week, but he finally looked like himself.
Mm-hmm.
He was catching balls. He had a couple drops, but he's always going to have the drops where he has to use his hands, you know. But he had a couple of clutch catches. He had a couple of catches on third and fourth downs where he gets the yak to get the first down. He looked shifty with his routes. He ran really good routes. Yeah, I think that was his first step, because obviously it seemed like Tua's been feeding him the ball, trying to get him more involved as the season has gone on.
He's like
Because
force feeding him now.
they have been.
Yeah.
And when I realized that a couple of games ago, when Tua's rolling out, like, was it the Panthers game?
Yeah. Tyreek ran across, was wide open, and he threw it
And he
straight
threw it back to where Waddle was standing, and it was a more dangerous pass. He still got it completed, thank God, but it was a more dangerous pass because I guess you want to spoon feed the guy, get him more involved, get him more comfortable, so it's not just one guy getting the ball. But so that was a little bit more clunky. This past week, it was seamless. It was in the flow of the offense. Waddle was getting looks and getting yards after the catch, and it looked gorgeous. You looked up, and he had 125 yards or whatever it was. It didn't even feel like he had that many yards because he was getting it within the flow of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this week, especially with obviously Kansas City gearing against Tyreek Hill, it'll be another good opportunity for Waddle to get another good step under his belt.
Yeah, we know Tyreek Hill's the focus, and that's where it's kind of different from basketball. It's like if one player is your focus, your second best player normally plays really good. In football, Tyreek Hill's are everybody's priority, but he still cooks you every week. Every week.
You can't guard him. I mean, I was watching, not to get too off topic here, but I was watching a recap of a couple of Tua's throws from the last game against the Patriots, and the breakdown was about Waddle's routes, and he was talking about how Waddle was getting open over here, and how what a great pass it was to Waddle on these two plays. But on the top of the screen, Tyreek is running open on every play.
Yep.
On every play. So it's whenever Tua wants it, it's there. You cannot keep up with him. You have to have a defender just stand at the goal line to try to chop off these deep passes, because Tyreek will always be open down the field if he wants it.
They should start allowing teams to have 12 players on defense to guard him. I would like to see that experiment. I think we'd still win.
Probably.
All right, Zach. Miami Dolphins 6-2. Kansas City Chiefs 6-2. Frankfurt, Germany 9:30 a.m. Who's coming out on top? Give me your winner and give me your score.
The last two big games the Dolphins played against the Eagles and the Bills, I was more nervous than I am going into this game. These are the defending champs, so they're never going to be taken lightly. But with their struggles on offense, and just like I think it's a good matchup for Miami.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take them for granted, but based on the strengths and weaknesses of each team, I see Miami coming out on top. I'm this close to guaranteeing victory, but I don't want to jinx anything.
If you do, I'm going to pick you up and place you away from Playbook Sports.
So I'm going to say,
don't do it.
I'm going to say Dolphins win, and the Dolphins are going to score between 27 and 35, and the Chiefs are going to score between 17 and 25.
Okay. Well, as head of Playbook Sports, I'm guaranteeing a win because fuck that shit. I have Dolphins 21, Chiefs 17.
A low-scoring affair.
Yeah. I think the defense is going to get to us a little bit. I think Chris Jones might get to Tua a little bit. And now, is that a majority of the reason I'm going such a low score? No, it's because the last few times I went these high fucking scores and we got embarrassed. So maybe if I switch it up, we'll win. But yeah, I'm going Dolphins 21-17.
Like it.
And that's all I got. I am praying to God. I just so happened I have a trip on Sunday morning. Luckily, I'm leaving at 7 a.m., so it kind of sucks. I'm driving all the way to Tennessee, so I got to watch it on my phone.
Oh no, you're gonna be driving the entire time.
Yeah, well, my dad's driving, so.
Oh, okay. Well, that works.
And we act like I wouldn't pull over on the side of the road and watch a 3-hour football game on the highway.
Fair.
Crazier shit has happened. All right, Zach, that's all I got. Is there anything you want to say before I let you go?
Fins up, baby.
Fins up.
Let's get it.
Let's pray to this guy right here. Hold on. Let's give him a kiss. All right, Zach.
Take it easy.
Peace.